Hi, and welcome to another episode of Money Talk, where we don't just talk about money, making money, what to do with the money, but how things around us really affect our ability to attract it. These are keys to our financial success, but it's also important for us to explore how our investing into our mental, into our physical well-being can lead to a richer and more fulfilling life. Sometimes we can feel very overwhelmed by the demands of our life, whether you have children, young children under 5, or a husband, or animals, or a business that you're trying to run. These things can be really pulling at you constantly. How do you try to balance your family and your work and your life's responsibilities? Well, guess what? You're not alone. But today we're going to discuss some very effective strategies so that you can reclaim your energy and your mental well-being, because today's guest is a nutritionist and a self-concept coach. Now, I know you're going, a what? And we're going to ask her all about it in just a few minutes, because she specializes in helping women overcome that anxiety, that burned out feeling relating to issues like fatigue and weight gain and mood disorders. I can feel cranky myself if I don't get some sleep. So there you go. But this individual raised 3 kids and had a lot of health challenges. And I know all of you are thinking, man, we got to talk to her. She's probably got a lot to say to us about how that could affect you, and affect your health, whether it's your blood pressure, your migraines. I'm just going to say that almost sounds like an introduction. But I have 2 things that I want you to do right now. Sometimes we just get really carried away with what we're doing, and then we forget that there are ways for us to share this. And if you like what you hear, make sure you share it. Don't keep it to yourself. And then stay tuned, because we will be right back.
Linda gave me the courage, the confidence to move forward.
And after I was finished with Linda K's training, I was at the next level.
It's Linda K. But when you trust that piece of you that says, I got something to give, I have something to say, you know you've got something to do.
Get on your feet, shake your hands in the air. Welcome to the stage, Linda K.
We are back. Today we're going to introduce a really individual that has lived through the anxiety, the pain of the migraines, the 3 kids that could be pulling at you all the time, and how to get past some of these issues and these struggles. And some of it is life balance, but some of it is nutrition. And we're going to talk about every bit of that today. So please join me in welcoming our inspiring guest today.
Linda gave me the courage.
I told you we got gremlins everywhere today. So welcome to the stage, Valerie Hawkins. Valerie, there we go. We got you.
Hey, Linda. How are you? You're muted. You're muted, Linda. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I've got
Gremlins.
all kinds of things going on my computer today. I apologize to our viewers and, of course, to our guests. But Valerie, talk to us about how nutrition plays such an important part of who we are as individuals and overall health. How does it overarch what we do and how we feel?
Yeah. So nutrition, I mean, it's a building block for everything, right? Without nutrition, we couldn't live. So like that fundamentally, like you need it to survive. But for like everyday life, I'd say nutrition, especially with the clients that I work with, it's more about like getting over that physical, mental, and that emotional fatigue, right? And how nutrition can give us that energy, can help us be at our optimal performance to do our jobs, to live our lives, to show up for our families.
So when I think about nutrition and health, I always think about, we preach it because we teach it to the kids, right? But we're really our best advisors to ourselves. Why do we not take our best advice?
So like that's the thing, right? So most people think like, I don't know, like some specific cases, like nutrition is not a information deficit, right? Most people know the basics of what they should be doing to eat healthier, do healthier, but we just don't do it because I think we make it too complicated, right? We've most of the things that are offered to us that are highly processed, that are high sugar, they also drive our like dopamine, our reward system, so that like we crave those things that are offered to
Mm.
us now. So I think before a lot of processed foods came on the market, like you didn't hear a lot of the same problems when it comes to weight and some of the other health conditions that you do now.
Yeah, I think that, there's a lot more available data, and not just because it's the internet and it's there, but they're tying so much of what our nutrition is to our not just to our mood and our well-being, but to diseases as well. If you deprive your body of all the sugar, then the cancer can't grow, right? That was a conversation that I just had with somebody a few minutes ago, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that, if you've got issues that you have attracted a major disease, I'm pretty sure that nutrition can play a big part of this. How'd you get into this?
So well, first of all, I had a terrible diet. Like when I looked at myself growing up, like I had all the ultra processed TV dinners, like all of that stuff was like mainstay in
Toasted
my diet.
Twinkies, lots of sugar in our favorite candy bars, right?
Exactly. Like my favorite thing was like pizza and like a really cold soda when I grew up. Like that was like my favorite thing to eat. So, and I loved it, right? So like I love that food, but then,
It doesn't
you know,
sound bad still.
exactly. I mean, I'll eat pizza. I still eat pizza. But
Yeah.
but I had like migraines from a really young age. That was the first thing I had, like these debilitating, like horrible migraines. Like I couldn't function, like the pain, like dark room, laying in a bed, can't do anything. Like terrible, terrible
Oh,
migraines.
that sounds debilitating. That
Yeah.
actually sounds quite horrible.
Yeah. And doctors, I went to like many, many doctors and I've tried like all kinds of medications. And like not one time did a doctor ever ask me what I was eating. They told me like, oh, they said like, don't eat these trigger foods, like, alcohol, wine, chocolate, different things that might be trigger food. That was about it.
Well, that's
But
a
no one,
confusing story and message, Valerie, because chocolate we hear is really good for you, but obviously anything to any excess is not going to be good for you. But why didn't they make the connection between what you were eating and your headaches?
well, I just,
What did they say it was? What? Oh, you must be mensing. That's always been a
well, that
favorite
could be
thing,
it. It
right?
could be the barometric pressure. It could be like your cycle. It could be stress. It could be all, and yes, all of those things can contribute at some level to like hormonal imbalance, right? Which could
Sure.
drive migraines, maybe. For me, that wasn't the case. For me, it was like all the sugars, like you had mentioned, sugar and cancer, like people have sugar and migraines, like sugar drives that inflammation, like people might have candida overgrowth, right? And eating that sugar just like feeds it constantly and causes all kind of things. But for me, it was the foods and the inflammation that those foods were driving in my body. But no one ever asked. And I think traditional medical doctors, they just don't even get the education on nutrition.
I think you're absolutely right because, and I want to give you an example of why what you just said is so important. I had a really bad foot ache to the extent that I couldn't walk on it easily or comfortably, and certainly could only wear tennis shoes with something that had a lift in the arch. And I had never experienced this ever in my entire life. And I had gone back to a retreat back east, and there was a nutritionist there. And she asked me why didn't I go out on a hike that morning? I said, because I can't walk. I couldn't walk across, the parking lot without having severe pain. And, and she said, well, tell me about your pain. And he said, well, it started in one part of the foot on the right side, but when it got to the top, it was, oh my God, so painful. But I'm telling you, when it moved to the left, that is when I said, amputation might feel better. And, because we always think in extremes, right? And so she said, well, in nutrition, we call that emotion. And it was like, ding, ding, ding. What? A podiatrist hadn't told me there's a connection between that.
Mhm.
And I had also had some issues with my eyes, and never connecting the emotions, never connecting the nutrition, because I eat pretty well. But when I connected the metaphysical part of this this illness, whatever these symptoms are. And our body is really good at giving us clues, and we're really good at ignoring them. But in this instance, I said, in my foot, if that's an emotion, where don't I want to go? What don't I want to do? What don't I? And pretty soon, when I understood the connection between that, no, it didn't fix it overnight. But when I understood what it was, I began to, our body then communicates that connection between, our conscious and our subconscious, our superconscious, and our conscious well-being. And it took a nutritionist to tell me something that my orthodontic, or the orthopedic would not and could not tell me. And when I told her about the connection, you're not going to believe what she said to me, Valerie. She said, Linda, I wish that they taught us this in school. We don't learn this. What you're telling me is something that I have suspected for a long time, and making that connection between the emotional state, and this wasn't necessarily nutrition, but the emotional state of what our body is doing. I was not only surprised, but today I walk and I'm back wearing my heels and making that, because once I understood what the issue was, then we can go about fixing the things. But when we ignore what those things are, what those symptoms are, and we think, oh, it can only be one thing, we're going to go to the doctor. Well, Western medicine only has 3 protocols, right? We're either going to burn it off, we're going to medicate it off, or we're going to cut it off, right? There's only 3 pieces that they're taught. So what a disservice to our medicine, to Western medicine. What do you think of that?
I actually agree with that, like 200%, because that's actually one question I'll often ask clients. Like, what does this mean? Like, why is this, like, what is happening? Like, why is it happening there in that location in your body? Right. And that's not like a typical question. It's kind of like, what do you mean? Why is it happening? It's like, just like, because I'm looking at the emotional, the stress, like, where is it showing up? I had a very similar thing. I had years ago, before I started nutrition, I had an infection that came up on my face. It was like gigantic, huge. Like, I ended up in the hospital. And that's when I started. I asked myself, I was like, why is this happening? Like, what's coming up? And for me, it was like, I was hiding had the shoulders of like my whole family, like all of the, so if I didn't feel
I know
well,
what you're talking about.
yeah, if I didn't feel like I wasn't feeling energetic. I had all these pains. At that point, I still had migraines, but I was hiding them. Right. So I was almost like I was masking them. So when this came out on my face, like, you couldn't hide it.
No.
It was like there. So now everyone could, it was almost like, now, like, see my pain. It was like I was like masking myself. So like, why? So its question is like, so why is it showing up there? And what is it telling you? Right. And that's the same thing.
So now when you made that connection, because we're both talking about the same thing now, we understand
Exactly.
that there's more to our body than just a science to it, right?
Absolutely.
There's a subconscious, there's, the unconscious, the thoughts that go through our head, which are over 60,000 a day, 60,000 thoughts, 95% of them repetitive, and 75% of them that are negative. What are we telling ourselves, right? So it's no wonder that we may not be consciously thinking, oh, I've got this thing that's growing on my face, but unconsciously and subconsciously, our body's screaming, please help me. And if you won't, I'm going to show up.
Right. And it shows up in a way to be helpful. Like some of the other work you mentioned, self-concept work,
right,
that I work on. But like, that's the thing, is like, there's all these negative thoughts. There's these negative things we say we're self-sabotaging, these negative things showing up like on our bodies and pains. But for me, I always think like, what's the purpose, the positive purpose?
Right.
What was the protective thing? What was the positive thing? Like, why is that showing up? It's telling you something to be helpful. Right. So that's kind of like my approach. Like it's, everything's positive to a point, right? It's trying to tell you something.
It is trying to tell you something. Now, what is the connection, and when you made that connection between that and how you serve your audience today? So they always say, physician, heal thyself, right? So you figured out there was a connection between what was going on here and what was going on all around your body. And then, can also be affected by our environment and be completely unaware of it as well,
Mhm.
right? So
Absolutely.
how did you make that connection to be able to help other people so that that you would have a program they could actually step into and feel like, wow, somebody actually hears me, somebody actually knows what I'm feeling and thinking. Tell me how that journey went for you.
Yeah, so it was quite the journey. So first it started with the actually the mental emotional, always trying to figure out like is it energetics, like what was happening mentally, emotionally. That was kind of a area I was always fascinated with, wanted to work on. But when I changed like the physiology, like with food, like
Hmm.
that made a huge difference. That gave me the energy, that got rid of the pain. And now I had more capacity to kind of work on more of those emotional and mental issues like that were coming up, the resistance, because I had more capacity, right? I had more energy. I could
Right.
had more resilience physically to be able to handle those things. So once I saw that food could do all of these things, that's when I went back, there's something here. And I was actually a little bit mad. I was like, why is no one talking about this?
Why I
Why did a
why
doctor never tell me this? So I went back and I got my master's in nutrition, right? That was the first start. Now the program I went to also did a lot of integrative work, mindfulness, and things like that, right? So, and as I was exploring that, I came across like the self-concept approach, which was really to work on your self-esteem, your self-worth, right? And kind of like, why am I not feeling great about myself? Like, what other things are showing up? What other um, ways are there to work on this mental emotional part?
There is a wonderful connection. You just sparked a point for me, and I'm thinking about this now. That we could have so much emotional pain that we are dealing with that we're no longer able to cope with that, and that thinking about it is not something we want to do. And I'm thinking of, like say emotional vulnerability. You've been hurt in a loving relationship that turned ugly, and now you don't trust your feelings about that. So psychologically, you don't want to feel vulnerable like that. So now we can subconsciously start programming someplace in our mind that we also don't want to be physically attractive. So we're going to start gaining weight. We're going to start doing. Do you work on these kinds of issues?
Yeah, exactly, just that. Exactly that. So kind of like what do you want, right? Like what is like so I say I want to lose weight. Like you're doing money talk, right? I say I want
Right.
to make more money. I want to be successful at my job. Like whatever your goal is. And I these tend to be the two things that I work with clients on because their stressors are often a money stressor, right? And I
Yes.
give lots of
And
examples.
it
So
triggers everything else, doesn't it?
it's absolutely the two kind of work like not together,
They
against
can
each
work
other
together
often.
or they can work
Right? The
against each
health
other.
affects the money causes stress for the health. So, but the problem is, like, so say you just wanna work on weight, right? And you have a resistance to weight, like you were describing, it's kind of like that the very first thing you ask is like, "Do you actually want this goal? Do you have any resistance in the goal?" And logically, it's usually yes. Yes, of course I wanna make more money. Of course I wanna lose more weight. Of
Of
course, it's
course.
logical. But, on a more subconscious level, when I ask, "Okay, you can achieve that tomorrow. You're gonna have this goal and you're gonna have it tomorrow." If you're not jumping up and down, resounding, "Absolutely," and you're just and if something comes and like, "Yeah, but," and
Right,
there's a
I'm gonna
little
win. I'm winning
something,
the lottery,
right?
right?
A little something there shows up, okay, there's something there, right? And if there's any part of you that has a resistance to achieving that goal, like, you're gonna do things to not achieve it, right? But I
Oh,
think
oh my God. You mean like self-sabotage yourself? Like go look
well,
in the mirror and go, "Oh girl, what are you thinking? Nobody's going to ever think you're attractive anyway, so just keep eating or keep we're not thinking of those things though, are we? We're not consciously thinking,
no.
"Oh, let's just beat myself up, let's just, do some self-flogging." But we're doing that on a subconscious level. How do we become aware of it?
Yeah, I think just knowing that it's there is the first step, right? And I actually don't think it's self-sabotage, right? I don't think it's like negative. I think there's a positive purpose to those negative things you're saying, right?
Okay.
There's always something positive about it, like something protective. Um, Often
Oh,
when I
that's
work
a
with a
great way to
client,
look at that. Tell me more.
yeah, it's kind of like the positive thing that is that it's after. So like you're thinking, oh, I'm self-sabotaging. No, but you're trying to achieve a positive thing. And
Right.
often if I'm working with a client on weight, I might use a wealth analogy for this because the health weight analogy might be traumatic, right? Say they were
Okay.
abused. They might have been abused, right?
Right.
When they were younger, for
Right.
instance.
And so you got this suppressed emotion that
Well,
you,
there's suppressed
again, you're
emotion,
not,
but I don't want to be thin. I want to be less attractive because it's protective.
right.
So it's
Okay.
like that, right? So it's like I want to be less attractive, or I if I eat really healthy and I don't eat these other foods, like then I have disconnection with my family, my friends, right? So it's a positive, so that there's a positive purpose to what you're doing,
Right.
right? So I want to keep connected with my family. I want to keep my friends. I want to be able to go out and socialize and maintain these connections. And if I'm eating this way versus this way, now I can't do that, right? So you continue to do the thing that was protective or the thing that was positive. You're not, and once you become aware of what that is, then it's like, oh, how can I do both, right?
Oh, that's
How
why
can I
I'm
maintain connection and eat healthy, right? Because so once you find out what that resistance is, then you just find out how to do both things at the
well,
same time. So much
and
easier.
it's exactly what we just said a few minutes
Mhm.
ago. You made that connection between mind and body and the headaches and your nutrition. I made the connection about what was I resisting, right? I didn't want to
Mhm.
make a move. I didn't want to move to where I moved to. So what moves you is your feet, right? So what better way
Mhm.
than to send me a signal to have to deal with something than have to have a pain in the foot? And then the issue with the vision was, what don't I want to see? What don't I want to look at? And when I understood those connections, both of those began to improve. They didn't improve overnight, but it's like the subconscious says, okay, you got it. You got the message. I can stop sending out these alarms to you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But if we
Yes.
don't deal with that, it'll exacerbate. Your your
Absolutely.
headaches finally got to a point where I want a life that I'm living, not one that I'm having to lay down in the dark room for, right? So
Absolutely. Yes.
you made that connection. What are some of the tips that you can give to our viewers that uh, will help them understand how to become more aware, more mindful of what they're eating, what they're putting into their body, and what their minds are thinking about it?
Hmm. So there's so many things you could do. But for what you're eating, I like the first thing I would say is like just slow down. And that's a hard thing in this day and age to slow down. But maybe if it's just a moment when you sit down to eat, just slow down and notice what you're gonna eat. And it's almost like it's like mindful eating, right? And just like
Mm,
smell it, smell
yes.
what does it smell like? What does it taste like? Do you actually like it? Because sometimes when you find things that you can eat really quickly and you're used to eating. When you ask a client, like, do you actually like this food? Like someone might go to a fast food burger place and say, like, taste it. Do you really enjoy it? They might be like, I actually don't enjoy it. It's just fast and it gives me the energy or whatever in the short moment. So just sometimes just
Mm,
slowing down and seeing like what does it taste like? Right. And that slowing down alone will calm you down. Right. And in that calmer state, you'll be able to digest your food and actually
mm,
absorb the nutrients. Because if you're in a stress state and you're not calm, you're actually not going to digest and absorb the nutrients properly. So just slowing down, if you can, even for one meal, would be
mhm.
incredibly helpful.
Like, look at your meal, decide, what it's going to do for your body. I think there's a lot of
Mm,
truth into blessing your food before you eat it, because
mm,
you are spending that moment, like you just said, to bless this food to the nourishment of our body. We're asking for whatever is in that to supplement us with what we don't have, to provide us energy. So there's that piece of mindfulness. And I love that idea of just simply slowing down. What are some things we shouldn't do when we're sitting and eating our meal besides stressing out?
well, anything that's going to stress you out, you shouldn't do. But I think like if you're distracted, like how many times are people at eating and they have their phones there? They're constant distraction. They're not
Oh, they're
really
constantly like, oh,
the
oh,
phone's
oh,
always
oh,
on,
yeah,
right?
right?
Like if I'm at dinner with my kids, like that's like the phone is always on. Are we even listening to this conversation? Right? So, what is happening? So I think the phone is a major distraction. If you have television nearby, it's probably a
Oh my
distraction.
God, how many
So
people sit with the TV on just staring at it and then just shoveling the food in so you're not even aware of what you're eating
right,
anymore?
and that's one of the main things people will often overeat, right? If they're not paying attention or they're working and they're eating, they're on their phone, on social media, on their TV, they'll unconsciously start to overeat. That's a big one.
You just have you thinking about this eating machine that's sitting in front of a computer going, "Oh, I gotta eat," because we're not
Right,
even
don't
aware
even
that we're
realize it.
eating,
Yeah, don't
right?
even know it.
Oh, no. I have heard that drinking fluids while you're eating are not healthy for you either. Can you talk about that? Is it a myth or is it busted?
That's interesting. I actually usually don't try not to drink liquids while I'm eating. I don't. I for me, I think everyone's digestion kind of changes as they get older, and that's
Sure.
happened for me. So, my digestive enzymes, I don't think my hydrochloric acid in my stomach is not probably as strong as it needs to be. And by drinking liquids, I'm diluting that, right? So if I'm diluting the thing in my stomach, that's gonna help my food digest the best. That's probably not optimal. So I usually don't drink. I might drink 30 minutes before. That also makes you feel a little bit fuller. And then you have optimal digestion of with those enzymes. But some people can drink liquids and it's just fine.
Some of the liquids that we shouldn't be drinking, of course, I'm sure that we could talk all day about things with sugar in them, but people think, oh, well, I'm just drinking this sparkling water with it. It has no sugar. And I'm like, well, okay,
There's something else in
carbonation
there.
is
There's
still
other things.
it still has sugar. You teach a lot about eating well and traveling well. And I think one of the hardest things when people go traveling, because we're coming up on the end of our summer, there are a couple of weeks, and a lot of parents are trying to get these trips in with the kids. What are some hacks that you can give them uh, that they're going to either go out on day trips or they're going to go away for a week? What are some of the things that can help them stay on track? Because now, when they're out of their element, they are now like you said, reaching for the fast food, reaching for whatever is convenient because we're on vacation and the body knows it, right?
Mm, yeah. So I actually that's actually what I'll work with a client on. Like, where are you traveling and where are you going to eat and what's the plan? Right. And let me help. Okay, let's find some restaurants, right? Where might you possibly eat restaurant wise? Where are like other food sources you might get, like stores you might go to? And let's kind of think ahead of time. So basically plan ahead, right? I might go to one of these 5 restaurants. Let's look at the menu ahead of time and see what are good options. So when you get there, you're not like, "Oh my gosh, that cheesecake looks amazing," right? Or
Oh,
that
that's
food
a
is
great
like
idea because you can actually pre-script this. If you know that you're going to go to a restaurant, you can engage the kids with a little game too. Hey, look what's on the menu. So they're already predisposed. They're already looking
mm,
forward to it as opposed to looking at everybody else's meal going, I want that, I want that.
exactly,
Right?
right, yeah. So it kind of sets the stage, a little bit of planning. You can, find, quick foods that you can find at a local store, and I kinda promote protein. Everything I do is, protein forward and then, veggies and fiber, right? So not
Yes.
exciting, but so, a Greek yogurt would be a great you could probably find that somewhere quick.
Yeah.
You can find, oatmeal that works for people, especially if you're traveling.
Listen,
So there
you can even find that at Starbucks now. So you can find all
yeah, so you
kinds
can
of
find it,
healthy.
especially breakfast is kinda hard, but always try to get, a protein in, right?
Are you one
You
of
can
these
find
people that is
hard-boiled eggs. You can find hard-boiled eggs at a store. So, if they're on a budget and they wanna have something quick and bring it in, so, Greek yogurt, hard-boiled eggs, find something you can bring a protein powder with you and add it into your Greek yogurt to get even more protein. You can do, hacks like that, but I think if you're not going to pack, some people will pack, lots of food and bring it with them
right?
to make it because it's cheaper, it's easier, they're not gonna go off track, but I think really planning ahead, where you might eat is, the biggest thing that helps people.
That's awesome. I like your idea because it sounds to me like you're one of these hide the broccoli in the chocolate kind of parents.
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me about Parents Ally membership. What is that about?
Oh, Parents Ally. So I no longer do, but I operated childcare centers for over 20 years.
Oh my
So
gosh.
So that's where that came from. So like there's so many questions about like there's obviously a food part in there as to like if are you does your child is your child a picky eater? Like what can they do? How do you potty train them? Like anything that has to do with like parenting and questions, like that's what Parents Ally was for. So like there's like topics and here's information, but weekly they can ask questions. Like what questions
That's
do you
awesome.
have? And we'll get online and answer all the questions.
I love the fact that you had a weekly parent 911 calls because, as a new parent, I look back on, that was a while ago, but I know, I was in a state of panic, like, how do you do or how do you handle these things? And until you get one or two under your belt or you get a couple of years, where you have built your confidence now,
Mm.
everything new can sound and feel like a drama. So I love that you've got all of these programs that that help parents keep focused with their children. I know that we're just about out of time, but you've got something for our audience. Tell me about what you've got.
So this is on the self-concept side. So stress is a big problem for a lot of people. That's why Parents Ally, it's
Why
all about
stress?
helping reduce the
I don't
stress.
know that you're talking about stress,
Right,
right?
but what do people actually want? They wanna be happier, right? So the freebie is a guided audio that you can download,
I
and by going I think it's 7 minutes, and then after 7 minutes, you'll be happier. So happier in 7 minutes is the guided audio.
Happier in 7 minutes. I love that. Did we see that come up on the screen? I haven't seen that yet. Karen, you're going to drop that in the, okay. So
Mhm.
yeah, you've already dropped it. So thank you. It's in our feed. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And thank our audience for listening and sitting in. I get so many people that listen to these programs and they tell me how much they get out of the things, especially for mental health. So I really think that the topic is an important one. And I want to thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Valerie.
Great. Thank you, Linda.
My pleasure. And that is a wrap. I want to thank you all for joining us. Join us again next week where we will always have something new and interesting to talk about. See you then. Do you like to talk about money? If you do and you'd like to be a guest, contact me at lindak360.com.